Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Maggie Walker. Happy birthday to you.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, to our platform guests and to all those of you who've come to be with us. We tried to arrange a nice, cool day for you, and up until about 12 o'clock we had that day. But we do welcome you. We're glad that you came out to be with us today, and we're going to have a nice birthday party for Maggie Walker today.
The members of the Maggie L. Walker Historical Foundation and the National Park Service, I bid you welcome. In 1975, in October, the Maggie L. Walker Historical Foundation was chartered. The group persevered through many days of anxiety, frustration, hope, elation, dashed hopes, more elation, to the point where a bill was introduced to Congress. That bill passed and was signed by President Carter to acquire the Maggie L. Walker House as a National Historic Site and to do whatever is necessary to preserve this place for posterity.
I feel as I feel mainly because I am pastor of the church of which Maggie Walker was a member. She was not just a member, she was a good, a faithful and an active member of First African Baptist Church. And everything the church did, Maggie Walker had a hand in it. I am grateful to God that we had such a member as Maggie Walker, and I'm sure that even today our church would not be able to try some of the things she's trying to do had it not been for the influence and the inspiration of a Maggie Walker. So we thank God for her and for everything she did among us.
Very quickly, I would like to recognize at this time some of the very important people are here today, and we are going to take advantage of this to introduce you to the family of Maggie Walker. They're seated here on the front row, and we'd like for everyone in the Maggie Walker family to stand, please, so you can be recognized by our guests. The Maggie Walker family, ladies and gentlemen.
Are happy over the transaction, knowing that the Maggie L. Walker home will always be a home of culture and history. And we are all grateful to the National Park Service and all of our many friends and well-wishers. The Maggie L. Walker Historical Foundation and all assembled here today, young and old, can sit here and hear these words echoed from this window up here. Have hope, have faith, have courage, and carry on. Thank you.
And I can assure you that the spirit of Maggie Walker will never die. For most of my professional career, I have been involved in buildings, people, and places. My heart was touched the first time I walked into the Maggie Walker house. The history of black folks and of the racial harmony of America and what this country is all supposed to be about is behind those doors of the Maggie Walker house. The pleasure of having worked on the Maggie Walker house says to me, as Dr. King said, that's my mountaintop. I want to thank the foundation, the City of Richmond, for having given me the opportunity to work in the Maggie Walker house. I want to thank Dr. Lewis and her husband, who used to play in the house with my good friend from Indianapolis, Berthel Mayo. Got spanked in there one day when they were playing in the elevator. But I want to thank all of them for having given me the opportunity to serve Maggie Walker in her memory. Thank you very much.
At this time, it's my privilege to present to you for remarks the Mayor of the City of Richmond, Mr. Henry L. Marsh. Mayor Marsh.
Thank you very much, members of the Maggie Walker family, federal officials assembled, state officials, and friends. This is indeed a great day in the history of our city. This is the proper moment to honor the perfect person in the most appropriate place for the right reasons and in a fitting and proper manner. For many years, Maggie L. Walker has been recognized as a giant among those persons who contributed to the history of our nation. However, now is perhaps the most proper time to honor her, because we are just beginning to recognize the contributions that women are making to our society. The Chinese people have a saying, women hold up half the sky. This is their way of acknowledging the contributions that they make. We are recognizing this in other ways in this country. Also, we are beginning to recognize the contributions that black people are making to this country. And for this reason, it is fitting that we honor Maggie Walker at this time. We also honor Maggie Walker in the appropriate place. This, of course, was her home. This also is the state that produced 8 presidents. This is the city where John Marshall lived, and we are within the shadow of his house. This is the place where Patrick Henry made his speech, where Thomas Jefferson designed the Capitol. As a matter of fact, we are now gathered in the historical Mecca of the world, right here in Richmond, Virginia. And it is fitting that we honor the great Maggie Lena Walker right here in this place. This is also the perfect place in that this is in Jackson Ward. And Jackson Ward is proving to be the heart of our revitalization efforts here in the city of Richmond, and this project will be key to our efforts to revitalize this area of our city. We also honor Maggie Lena Walker for the right reasons. We honor her for her greatness. It would not be accurate to say that Maggie Lena Walker overcame the handicaps of race and sex, because she did not consider those as handicaps. Rather, she considered them as opportunities to make a contribution to mankind. And she achieved within her society as she could at that time. We also honor Maggie Lena Walker because of the right reasons and in the fitting and proper manner. I have seen some of the plans for the development of this monument here, and this will be most fitting for her because the people of Richmond and the people of the world will be able to come and witness to home where she lived and where she made many of her contributions. So this is a great, proud day in the history of a great, proud city. I welcome you here today, and I invite you to come back when this monument is complete, and come back again when we will have an opportunity to see what is indeed a fitting tribute for one of the greatest Americans who ever lived.
It is quite fitting that we should gather here to pay homage to Maggie Lena Walker, a woman who made contributions and achieved beyond the levels and expectations set for blacks and women. Today we hear the expression, non-traditional job. Maggie Lena Walker was a pioneer. As the president of a major black bank, she indeed held what was for persons of color, and certainly for women of her time, a non-traditional job. Few Americans of the late 19th and early 20th centuries were not familiar with this handsome and gifted woman. Her fame, her face, and her words graced the pages of major black newspapers and periodicals. She was sought as a speaker and was heralded as a role model for black males and females, young and old. Today, tragically, many of our figures like Maggie Walker, Frances Ellen Watkins Harper, Martin Delaney, Isaac Myers, Mary McLeod Bethune, and many other persons who were nationally known during their lifetimes are missing from the traditional history textbooks and are for many Americans obscure. Despite all of the emphasis placed on black history in the 1960s, only a few names of black historical figures have been resurrected. The first task that we must undertake on a large scale in this generation is to identify, collect, preserve, and exhibit manuscripts, documents, and material artifacts which collectively tell the story of black life and history. The papers of many major black figures are still in the basement and attics of many of our senior citizens, and I'm sure there are a lot of them here in Richmond, Virginia. They lie moldering, unprocessed, and unavailable in houses like this one. Scholars cannot write history without adequate manuscript sources. Museums cannot exhibit materials which do not exist. The second task we must undertake on a large scale is the identification of historic houses and neighborhoods like this one that stand as monuments to the black experience in America. Far too much has been destroyed, but a great deal still exists. Our children must not only read about the black sojourn in America, but they must also see tangible evidence of that experience, like this house. July the 15th, 1979, is indeed a most important day, for it signals the beginning of a major project to resurrect the life, the history, and the contributions of Maggie Lena Walker. It is for that reason that we rejoice on this most glorious of days.
While many of your speakers have concentrated on and focused on the historic contributions of Maggie Walker, I see in her a great inspiration for the future. It should be obvious to poor and minority Americans the significance of today's commemoration of Maggie Walker. For her life, though now history, symbolizes the fact that the quality of life which we seek is in direct proportion to our individual and our collective economic status. This house will serve as a constant reminder to us of the heights we have yet to achieve. And this occasion could not have been better timed. As the nation enters a period of recession, with employment, investments, and earnings likely to drop, poor and minority individuals are going to feel it worst, especially when you combine this situation with the heavy increases in the cost of food, the cost of housing, gasoline, and the expected increases in home heating fuels. There also could not have been a better time than today to focus on how this occasion relates to the economic status of poor and minority Americans. May we all take this opportunity, in the name of Maggie Walker, to rededicate ourselves to strengthening our communities through local investment and community development. In this way, with continued support from local financial institutions as well as government, we can pursue the dream of Maggie Walker, a dream that recognized that full participation by blacks in the American system meant having an economic base upon which to build and to rely. The progress we have seen in the decades since Maggie Walker put her dream into practice has been encouraging. By acknowledging her contribution to the history of this nation, President Carter, the Congress, have given new life and added meaning to the inspiration Mrs. Walker provided. May the many people of all races and ethnic backgrounds who visit this site leave with a greater appreciation of the contributions of Mrs. Walker and with a commitment to carry on the work she began. Thank you very much.
At this time, we'd like to present to you for some remarks and presentation of the deeds, Dr. Maggie Walker Laura Lewis.
It is a pleasure and a privilege to present this deed to you and to you. Thank you. Thank you very much. I am a very happy person. This is one of the most auspicious occasions of my life. I am surrounded by friends, family, and many well-wishers. My grandmother Walker would say, I like this, I like this, I like this, and I'm saying it today, I like this. I must add, this occasion would not have been possible were it not for my mother, Mrs. Hattie Fraser Walker, who struggled to hold on to 110 East Lee. She would also be proud to see what is happening today. Thank you, everyone, for coming here to say such a wonderful occasion, including Mr. Cephas, Mr. DeForest, and everybody else. And Lord help my husband for getting me here.
I'm reminded that on July 19th of 1848, under the influence of Elizabeth Cady Stanton, the first Women's Rights Convention, meeting in Seneca Falls, New York, passed a series of resolutions, and one read in part, resolved that the speedy success of our cause depends upon the zealous and untiring efforts of men and women for the securing to women an equal participation with men in the various trades, professions, and commerce. It is interesting to think for a moment of Maggie Walker as a female revolutionary, a quiet female revolutionary who saw a way to implement the American dream of equality. Through native acumen, she affected her times and the people of her times significantly and constructively. Surely it is for this reason that the United States of America honors her in perpetuity at this place. She joins a lustrous group of fellow revolutionaries in the pantheon of American heroes and heroines. I was delighted to hear Mrs. Baxter tell about Mrs. Walker's use of the word hope, and it brought to mind a small expression. Behind me is a door of hope for all American citizens. It is in this spirit that Eastern National Park and Monument Association, the organization I represent today, has participated in the transfer of this property to the United States. This event gives meaning to our constant efforts to interpret the American heritage, and we are happy to be here, and I am particularly happy to present to Dick Stanton, the Regional Director of the National Park Service, the bill of sale for the furnishings of this house.
Thank you, Mr. Roth. On behalf of the Director of the National Park Service, I am pleased to accept the donation of the furnishings of Maggie L. Walker.
Today, July 15th,
1979, on the 112th anniversary of her birth to a former slave, her home officially becomes a National Historic Site, a historic site to be protected, a historic site to be preserved, as only the National Park Service can do it. To be preserved and protected for you and I today, but even more important for the benefit, enjoyment, enlightenment, and education of generations to come. From the beginning, with the unique natural wonders of our national parks and monuments, the National Park Service has expanded to include, among others, historic sites, memorial parks, military parks, recreation areas, seashores, lake shores, riverways, and even scientific reserves. In this act today, we bring this outstanding person, Maggie L. Walker, into a very select group of black Americans whose achievements have been of such magnitude that a significant place in their lives have been made a part of the national park system. I think most of us here today are aware that there are many, many more black Americans, women and men, who have made significant contributions to their country and to their fellow man, but for the most part have gone all but unnoticed. And I would hope that from today's ceremonies, we will all find renewed vigor, we will all find renewed commitment to seek and obtain all the due recognition, all the due honor for all of those many black Americans who labored under adverse and often desperate circumstances for the benefit of a people and a nation, yet remain unnoticed, yet remain unrewarded. With all of my heart and with all of my soul, I hope that today is a start in that direction. There is yet another benefit that I think we in the National Park Service will receive from our work here. Maggie Walker spent the latter part of her life in a wheelchair, and in fact she had joined another large population of Americans whose needs has been and still are neglected by society. And we intend to do our best, helped by her example, to make this home, to make this district, to make all of our parks, facilities, and programs accessible to all segments of the population. We want all barriers, whether they be physical or whether they exist in attitudes and lack of consideration, to be eliminated so that people regardless of physical, people regardless of social or political handicaps can have their rightful access to the heritage of America. By opening our system of national parks to all who would find opportunity for growth, to all who would find opportunity for pleasure and development, we indeed strengthen our nation, we indeed strengthen ourselves. Our actions here today corroborate this widely held view that the manner in which Mrs. Walker rose from poverty to affluence and influence, if you please, is a source of inspiration to all young Americans, and especially such a source of inspiration to youth of minority and ethnic groups. Today, the wish of Dr. Lewis, her beloved granddaughter, comes true. Her wish that the Maggie Walker home would one day be remembered and commemorated as a kind of beacon of hope for her people and for the nation. The National Park Service
as the guardian of this new edition, and as Deputy Director, and in behalf of the Director, I pledge to you here today that the full resources of the National Park Service will be used to assure that the complete story of this great lady's life is told and portrayed in such a manner that her memory will be preserved in all its glorious dimensions for all who would find encouragement from her life. We further pledge that we shall make every effort to restore this magnificent home to the splendor it held during the years that Maggie Walker entertained so many outstanding Americans here. We shall commend to our best professional historians, interpreters, architects, etc., the honored task of enlarging and protecting our store of knowledge of the life and works of this noble American. I would close by simply responding to what was reported to be some of Maggie Lena Walker's last words. We have hope. We do have faith. We do have courage. And with God's will and God's blessing, we will carry on. Thank you very much.
Till victory.